So Thay said to bring your chair closer and turn to the front. I have two questions. The first one is, last year in the summer, I met you and I asked, can you wait for me? When I grow up, I can become a nun. But now my mom said, before I can become a nun, I have to study something else. So I have something in my hands. So I calculate that once I finish school, I'll be 25 years old. So can you still wait for me, Thay? So is that your first question? Yes. And what's your second? When I sat near you, I saw you invite the bell and you did something like this. What were you thinking about? So here I will answer your second question first. It's easier. Whenever I invite the bell or whenever I hear the bell, after the sounds of the bell, then we breathe in breath and an out breath. And you do that 3 times. And my hands like this, it shows that this is the first breath. And the second breath, in and out, so that I have happiness and peace and ease and calmness. And at the second breath, I switch to a different fingers. I put all my heart and mind into my breath. So that's why using my fingers, I know that this is the second breath. It's not the third breath yet. So my hands to remind me, this is what's the number of breath I'm breathing. So once I reach this finger, that means it's a third finger. I don't sit there and count so that my mind won't notice, pay attention to my breath. So I use my hands to remind myself this is the first, the second, and the third breath. And when I look, or when I know that this second finger is the third breath or the fourth breath, so then I know within these 3 bells, I was able to breathe in and out 9 times. Very healthy and very at ease. When I chant, I also do the same because it's very interesting. And it's very concentrated. If I don't put all my heart and mind, then the words in the sutra would just fly past me without me seeing it. Such as Sariputra, listen, all dharmas are empty, no birth, no death. So I do this so that I know I understood the meaning of no birth and no death, no foul and no purity, no increasing, no decreasing. Emptiness is no different from form, and form is no different from emptiness. So all these sentences are very important, and I don't want to chant just by my mouth or my head only. So my hand, it helps me to put my heart and mind in it. So it's very important. For example, we use the rosary beads to chant, and breathing in and out, and I use the beads. So the hands touching the beads reminds me of putting my heart and mind into what I'm doing. I'm breathing or I'm chanting the Buddha's name. That I don't do it mechanically, breathing mechanically, and I think of something else and I don't think about this happening here. So this contact in my hand touching the beads, it helps me. So the fingers, the hands is very helpful, beneficial when I'm practicing. For example, when you're angry and you come back to your breath, you can use your hands to become the Dhamma seal, and you can breathe. And when you breathe and you're using this seal, and you know that your hands helping you how to breathe, to keep breathing and continuing your concentration on it. Sometimes you breathe, you might forget and think of something else, but while your fingers are holding it, you continue your concentration. You do not go out that breath. So that's why it's the Dhamma seal. So I know how to use my fingers to strengthen my concentration and my mindfulness. And your first question's about when I graduate and I'm 25, can you still wait for me? So when you're 25, what would you study? What would you be? What will you study when you're 25, when you're done? When I'm 25, I will finish the medical doctor degree. So once you finish being a doctor, wouldn't you have to work in the hospital? Then how can you practice? Why don't you just become a monastic? So you study monasticism. But my mom said, if I want to become monastic, I have to study something first and have something in my hands. When you become a monk, there is nothing in your hand. You should have nothing in your hand. If you have something in your hand, you shouldn't become monastic. If you have something in your hand, you would grab it tightly. How can you become monastic? Do you know if you become monastic, you have to let go whatever in your hand, such as a car. If you bring the car to the monastery and you say, this is my car, then you can't become monastic. Or if you have a bank account, a few thousand euros or 100,000 euros, you can't do that when you come to the temple. The nuns would tell you, you have to let go of that money, give it all away. You go to the temple with 2 empty hands. Cannot wear gold and jewelry and bring dollars and bring cars here. You cannot become monastic. If your mom said you need to have something in your hand, then that's not correct, even if it's a degree. Such as Brother Phap Ung, he has a PhD, but he let that go. Sister Đặng Nghiêm has a doctor degree, she also lets that go. Because he sees that being monastic is more fun than being a doctor. So to be monastic, what you need to study the most is the teachings of the Buddha. Why do you have to study, become doctors and the medicines? That is the career of someone who's curing a disease. When you become monastic, you helping heal the mental, the psychological disease, because humans are wounded and injured by the ignorance, greed, and anger. So when you become monastic, you know how to take care of those poisons in yourself. So even when you're young, you are studying that. So when you're older, you have experience, such as Brother Phap Hu. He's very young, but he was already started to become a brother. Since he was 12 or 13, he started to learn the teaching of the Buddha. So when he's older, then he can be better, be good. So when you're 25 and you come here, and then you will be behind Brother Phap Hu because he studied when he's 12 or 13. So the doctor degree that you have in your hands, it might not be beneficial, can be harmful because you're behind. You go to become monastics so that you learn the teachings, the abhidhamma, and the precepts, and the daily practice. And you know how to come back to your breath, your steps, your smile, and can be taking care of your mind, and body. When I became a monastic, I did not have any degree. I became a monk when I was 16. And why I was a monastic, I could study, not just study Buddhism, but study philosophy and civilizations and language. So you have to discuss this again with your mom about what you should have in your hands before you become monastic. You use your hands to make a livelihood, a career to feed yourself. You become monastic. You don't need to feed yourself because the Sangha takes care of you. When you bow down, the Buddha gave you a robe and an arms bow. That's enough. You don't have to worry about being hungry or being cold because the triple gems take care of us. So we have the time to practice and to help others. And when we practice and help others well, then we can help so many people. So that's why many brothers and sisters who are doctors already, they still become monastic because they see that being doctor, they can help some people, but not as many as being a monastic. So I suggest Sister Jankam, she become a nun and she helps her whole family. She's a knight in her family. In her family, in this retreat, they have brother and sister, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're all here to practice at the retreat. So it's very happy. So when you practice, you can also help your family and other. So if you're talking about waiting, I can wait for you 1,000 years. But the matter here is how you can use your time cleverly. Why did your mom give you the name Ni? The Ni Su, that's been a nun already. So thank you. So next questions. Let's listen to the sounds of the bell. Dear Thay, dear Sangha, my family practiced for a few years by following our breath and our steps, and we feel there's improvements, and we don't fight as much as before. However, sometimes I still think that this happiness is only a phase that one day will end, especially after one of us pass away. The practice, I know that can help liberate us from all the fear and suffering in this life, especially birth and death. But I keep thinking, if you say to go beyond birth and death, maybe it's not correct because I will die. And to go beyond fear and suffering in this life, I see it's partly correct. So is it to understand that what does it mean by to go beyond birth and death? Is it to get reborn into the higher realms when in the end become the Buddha and escape the cycle of samsara? Or does it mean birth to go beyond birth and death is to live awake, to be more exact, to live awake in each moment in our life? Second question is to say the present moment in terms of modern science is very tiny. We cannot measure it. If you say to concentrate on the present moment, maybe it's not correct. So do you say that the present moment is just a few seconds that we step or in one breath? So is that maybe also not correct? Because if I just think in that way, then I only focus on this such a short amount of time, and just like the like the horse, it can only see a few meters ahead of it because of the blinds, but we have to see a lot much further ahead of time. So if I sit an hour here, enjoying a whole hour here, or even further on, such as programs and plans in my life, so I can live meaningful in my life, and to think about the future and the past, but not being attached in the future and the past, such as in the sutra, knowing the way to live alone. So please, Thay, can you explain what it means to not be attached in the future or the past? How can I plan for the future without being attached to the future? So does it mean to live awakened with mindfulness in 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 this present moment that lasts the entire lifetime? That's the end. Your question is so long. These questions shows that we have not studied the Buddha's teaching a lot, and we have not practiced a lot. Because if we practice, we can answer these questions ourselves. These questions have this more theoretical aspect, does not reflect our practice. First of all, to go beyond birth and death, it does not mean that by dying, then you escape from birth and death, because that means you're still stuck in birth and death. You haven't gone beyond birth and death. If we say to go beyond both living and dying, birth and death, so if you die, then you're the victim of death. So we have to sign up into the next few retreats so you can continue to study Buddhism, to practice. Because right in this retreat, we have learned that the nature of reality is beyond the idea of one and another, birth and death. For example, the other day, I said the saying from Lavoisier, say there's nothing that's born and nothing that dies. And I keep repeating it several times, that a cloud is never born and it never dies. A cloud that cannot die. It can only become the rain or ice. So birth and death are just concepts in our head. And we take that concept of birth and death in our head, then that means we go beyond birth and death. It's very simple, it's not hard. In the present moment, the cloud, it has freedom toward birth and death. It's not afraid of being born, not afraid of dying, because its nature is of no birth and no death. Because in our head, we put on the cloud the idea of birth and death. But in its nature, it has no birth or death. It's the same with us. Our nature is of no birth or no death. But our mind thinks that there's one time that we were born and another time that we will die. But if we take the ideas of birth and death in our head out, then that's mean we go beyond birth and death. And we can see that in the present moment. Secondly, the present moment is so short. How can we take refuge in it? Don't we want to take refuge in dwelling happily in something longer? But we have to put the questions that the present moment is where I dwell happily. So the subject of dwelling happily, what is that? Who dwells happily? And who's that I? Is that I something permanent, non-changing? That subject of dwelling happily, is that something permanent and non-changing? How can you go look for an object that is permanent and non-changing? Because the place of refuge is also impermanent, and the person that dwells happily is also impermanent. So asking that questions, we assume that the present moment is very short and the I is very long and permanent, that want to take refuge in that present moment. So at the basis, you don't see that. In terms of practice, taking refuge in the present moment is something that you can do. For example, you're thinking about the past or the future, and we're not in contact with the miracles in the present moment, such as the wind or the birds or the flowers or the pines. And we get stuck in worries and anxieties. And we get stuck in the worries about the future or suffering about something in the past. So we don't have this ability to come back to the present moment, to be in touch with the miracles that are happening in you and around you. So when you take one in breath and you come back to the present moment, there's something that everyone can see, that being in touch with the present moment is something that we can do. If we cannot be in touch with the present moment, how can I drink my orange juice happily? If I'm not in touch with the present moment, how can I take a step in freedom? If not in touch with the present moment, how can I see and be compassionate and love myself? So this is something that everyone can experience. This is not a matter of theories. If you practice, then you won't ask that questions. Each steps, each breath is a tool for us to bring back to the present moment so we can live deeply these present moments and be in contact with the miracles of the present moment so that we don't waste our life. This is the basic foundation of our practice. It's not the theory. Anyone who diligently put effort into practicing walking for an hour, then you would know. So to ask these questions, that means you haven't practiced. Additionally, the present moment is similar to a flower. It's made of all the elements as not the present. It's made from the past, it's made from the future. So if we're in touch with the present very deeply, then we're in touch with both the past and the future. So that's why the present moment is not something that is separate from the past or the future. For example, in the past, we did something, make the mistake, and we cause suffering for ourselves and for the person we loved. So that wound it's still there in the present moment. We might regret, we might continue to feel bad. So when we are in touch with the present moment, we're in touch with that injury in the past through the present. And if we're awake and we say that back then I lack mindfulness, I lack understanding and compassion. So I said something like that or act like that, and I caused this wound, this injury in the person like that. So now I'm determined to not be foolish and repeat that act or that word. So when I put forth an determination like that and change, shifted in myself, then that injury start to heal. It heals not only in ourselves but also in the other person. So that's why being in touch with the present moment, you're in touch with the past. And we also know that the future, even though it's not there yet, but the future will be made by the quality of the present moment. So we can have control or sovereign over the future, even though the future is not there yet. If we're able to take care of the present moment perfectly with all of our talents, with all our cleverness, our wisdom, and our love, we take care of the present moment with all of our strength, then we are building for the future, because the future is made up from the present. So our act of building the future, all the things that we're doing to build the future, it is to take care of the present. If we take care of the present with all our heart, and that's the thing we can do for the future. So being in touch with the present is also to take care of the future. Taking care of the future and it's taking care of the present is also taking care of the present is also taking care of the past. So do not divide into three separate things: present, future, and past. So we look into the present moment, we have to see that is the present, that also the future. One is within the others. We have learned about this in the past few days, and these teachings is enough for us to have insight so we can answer the questions ourselves. So the matter here is we have to truly practice our steps, our breath, our deep listening, our loving speech. We have to do it wholeheartedly. Then our situation, the happiness of our lives and our family will improve. And whether we're able to go beyond birth and death or help others, it depends on this. If you don't take the first step, you cannot have the 100 steps or the 1,000 steps. They all relate to each other. If you do not do the things in the beginning, then you cannot do the things later on. So the people who are able to steps the first steps very stably, then they have the future, because it's always difficult in the beginning, but if you're able to be stable, then for sure in the future you will have a future and your families will have a future. Đi Thay, I also want to have two questions. You also have two questions too? Yes. Yes, my first question is when I come home, because right now I eat, I have soup, but when I come home, I have my families. How can I practice? So whenever I'm get teased and I don't feel fearful or feel ashamed in my heart, because at my home, they're not familiar with the practice like here. Sometimes I feel that I feel shy or ashamed, embarrassed. My second question is, since I was young, when I was a teenager, I was very happy that I have Thay in me. Whenever I need support, then I bring Thay out. You mean bring me out to use? So I want to know that I love my dad. I know that I love my dad, but I still am afraid of him because when I come home, I don't know if today my dad would be happy or he's in good mood or he's in that he might do something that would hurt everyone. So I want to know how you can teach me so I can see in my dad that there's also Thai in him too. That's the end of the questions. Has your dad come to Plum Village yet? No, not yet. We should try to convince him to go to Plum Village so it's easier. When I was young, I got some books from Thai, and I know my dad also read them. He said he didn't read them, but I know he read them. I also took cassettes from Thai and I gave to my mom. And I know that my mom later on, she was on the second floor. She turned the recording on really loud so my dad can hear it downstairs. What question is that? Oh, no, it's not a question. It's because I answer your question, Thay. So let's go to the second questions. Okay, you done? How can I see in my dad? How can I see Thay in my dad? The first question is, when I eat soup, I should have soup. It's easier to swallow. If I practice, I should have Dhamma friends, so it's easier to practice. In Plum Village, we have many Sangha friends, but at home, it's much harder to practice. Well, at least you have your mom. So when you have our Dhamma friends, uh, so they also do the same as us. If we walk quickly, too quickly, no one would tease us. But when we walk slowly, no one criticizes why you walk so slowly. When I first came to Europe and the US to call for the end of the Vietnam War, I met a priest. His name is Berrigan, Father Berrigan, and we were very close because the priest also he wants to have peace in Vietnam. But we are so different from each other. He was someone who's used to live in a city, and I'm used to live in the countryside. He lives very quickly, and I live very slowly. So whenever I invite him to go to the park and do walking meditation with me, so it happened something that's very funny. So we both start at the same point. We walked a little bit, and the father left me way behind. A few feet, 30, 20, 30 feet behind. He walked and he looked around, and there's no Thai next to him because I was way back. If I walk I don't have to walk quickly. There's no rush. Why do I need to walk so fast? So even if he walks fast, I still walk slowly and I breathe and I enjoy the fresh air and I enjoy. So he stood there and waited for me. Then I keep walking slowly with my steps and arrived until we at the same point. Then we start walking again. Within a few minutes, he's already over past me, and it keep continue on like that. So of course, I can learn how to walk fast with him, but then I also lose myself. I could not keep my practice. So when I came to the US here in the 60s, I did not have a Sangha. No Sangha, just myself. And to keep my practice was so hard. To keep my practice was very hard, but I was able to keep it. One time I sat in the Capitol in DC. I was having lunch with six senators or six congressmen. They invite me to lunch to ask about the situation in Vietnam. So I thought that this is a chance to let them know about what's going on in Vietnam, because they only hear from the communist parties or from the nationalist party, and they never heard from the words from the citizens. So in the US, they often have this habit of working lunch, eating and talking the same time. At the monastery, you eat lunch, you cannot talk. Either you eat or you talk. You do only one thing at a time. So I remember this man asked me one question. This congressman asked me a question. Why he asked me, I had to put my spoon down and I listened. And after I listened, then I answer him. And after I answer him, I put the soup spoon up, and then the other man asked me a question. Then I have to put the soup spoon down, and I have to put the soup spoon down again to answer another question. So I either eat or or answer questions. So in that lunch, I was not able to get any soup. I was able to keep my practice. So when I have the practice, I bring it home. Even in the family, there's those who might tease us, but if we have a strong spirit, we can keep our practice, we can keep our freshness, and we don't get mad. And after a while, they would see the value of that practice and they won't tease you anymore. And the thing about children helping the parents to practice is very common. Usually in Europe or US, we have young people who came and practice, and they are not mad at their parents anymore. And then after that, their parents also came to the monastery and practice. I think you will be successful if you continue to keep your patience and your freshness. And I'm sure there are moments when father and daughter would sit comfortably together. And that's when we can talk about the good influence from the practice. Sometimes it's difficult, and that's when we cannot share. It's difficult. It's not easy to share. So we pick the times that's more harmonious, when there's a calm and cool atmosphere, so that when we can find ways to talk about it, about our practice. We say that back then I was so easy to get mad, but now you know how I can keep myself from getting angry. And if the dad said, how, let me know, that's when you tell him. When the other person is curious and want to know, that's when you share. If they don't want to and you force them, then maybe not. In San Jose, there was a guy. His parents did not understand Thay. They think that Thay was very close to the communists. So the parents did not want to go to temple. and his parents did not think about thinking, reading the books or my hearing my lectures. So that man, he was able to go to the temple and hear my teachings, and he was very happy. So when he went home, he was similar to you and pretend to forget his books, my books there. And then his parents get curious and start reading the books, and then slowly let go of wrong perceptions of me. And they also attend the temple, but now they become very strong when lay people supporting the temples. And they know that back then what they heard about Thay is wrong, and they're able um, to know the true person of Thay. They know that the stories about Thay were wrong. So now they were happy that they're able to build their family based on the foundation of the Buddha's teachings. So we need to have patience and we need to have compassion. Sometimes we go to the temple and we see the Thai so nice, and we also wish, I wish my dad is also nice like Thai, so light and at ease like Thai. That you can do, but we cannot do it just by imagining about it, imagining that in my dad there's Thai. Of course, that's the truth. There's the in my dad there's a seed of forgiveness, of being nice, of love. But how can we help our Father so that these sheets are water? Water in many different ways. Water by a book or Dhamma talk, or by my own words. I lived with my dad for many years, so I would know what my dad is like. So I would know when I should talk to him and when I should not talk to him. And we have to say, we know what way to say, so that to let my father can let go of his wrong perception. I would say in a way so that the seeds of understanding, of love, and of forgiveness in my dad can be water. The fact of like having Thai in that is true, because you don't need to imagine it, because in your dad there's the seeds of love, forgiveness, compassion. The issue here is you have to be clever and skillful and find all ways to water these seeds, such as you holding out hands to the other person, and slowly you can pull that person in, to pull that person out of that stream so that they can get up on the riverbank. You need a lot of patience. There are many methods, skillful means to help others. If we practice well, we will find these skillful means. But first, we have to be patient. We have enough love and care. Do not give up. For sure, you will be able to help your loved ones. Here we have many brother and sister who become monastic without their parents' support permission, but they wanted so much to become monastic. They have to become monastics. But the parents were mad at them for a year, but with their love and patience and care, the brothers and sisters were able to help their family. Back then, the parents would not want to come to temple, but now they would come to the plum village to practice for the 3 months winter retreats. So I wish you a lot of patience and good luck in help in help in your practice, and help improving the happiness in your family. Is that two questions yet? That's it. So the last two questions were very practical. It can help many people. Dear Thay, dear monastics and the whole Sangha, I want to add that to dear parents, uncles, aunties. I want to ask for your permission to tell about a story. Something happened. And next I have a questions. And lastly, I want to ask you for a blessing. We can only ask questions, it's not tell the story, so we give time for others. Okay, then I will tell the question. I will ask the question and not the story. I haven't not taken the 3 refuge yet, but the 3 jewels is in me. I haven't taken the 5 mindfulness trainings yet, but I have practiced the precepts. And specifically before the war between the US and Iraq, I had used the first training to resolve the conflict in my thinking. Even though I haven't not taken the refuge in the triple gem, but in days of mindfulness, the Sangha told me that the teaching from Thay is very wonderful. And I agree with that too, because I had come to Plum Village and brings the practice from Thay to bring home back to practice. And I see transformation, so it's wonderful. But in the Sangha here, it could be a nun or a brother or my Sangha friends. And they say that the teachings of Thay is better than all the other teachings. And at that moment, I could not breathe fast enough. And that way I don't have enough mindfulness, so I answer right away. So I did not have the deep listening skills yet. So I want to ask Thay that did I commit did I commit a sin against the monastics? If I did, please let me regret my actions. If not, then can you please give me some teaching? And I also want to ask you for a special blessing. I want a blessing in that I come to Plum Village once a year. So the energy that I bring from Plum Village home, it might not be enough, I'm afraid. Can you please give me some extra energy so I can use for the whole year? That's the end of my questions. Which brother or sister that say the Plum Village practice is the best? Oh, I cannot tell you that, Thay. So then what is your question? My question is, I did not have the deep listening skills. So when the Sangha said that the teachings, the practice from Thay is very wonderful, I listen. But when they say that, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? They say that there's practice like this to breathe, to walk, to sit with mindfulness. And I agree with that because I practice and I see transformation. So then what's the issue here? The issue here is they say the teachings of Thay is better than others. Who said that? Oh, I cannot tell you, Thay, the names. The person who said that, they probably would know. Maybe the person who said that the practice from Plum Village is better than everything, because maybe that person have tried different methods, and to that person the practice from Plum Village is better than all. Maybe it's the truth. They're telling the truth. Not to force everyone to accept that truth. That person can say, according to me, the Plum Village practice is the best. But they cannot say that everyone has to follow Plum Village practice. They don't have the right to say that. If they say with that spirit and not, or if, but they don't, if let's say they don't force anyone to practice in that so in case that person want to say, according to me, in my personal opinions, the Plum Village practice is the best, and but not forcing everyone else to practice the Plum Village practice, then they have the right to say so. There's some people who became monastics and they went to different monasteries and they tried many different practice, and then they came to Plum Village and they want to become monastics because they think that's the most worthwhile place to become monastics. They have the right to say that, and maybe because they stayed Plum Village and haven't gone to other temples, and they say that, and they haven't gone to other temples, so they just say their own personal experience, and we can say that's the truth. But only when they say that if someone who doesn't follow the Plum Village practice, then they are not worthy. Then if you say that, then it's not in accordance with the spirit of Buddhism. Spirit Buddhism, it says there are many different practices. Never say that there's only one practice at all, and that's wrong. So we have to be careful. We have to ask, dear monastics, did you say this in your own personal experience, or is that something that you say to apply for everyone, that Plum Village practice is the only thing that's worthwhile for everyone to practice? Then if so, then it's not in accordance with that open-minded, inclusive view of Buddhism. So when there's a person who does not have this open and inclusive attitude like that, then we have to find ways to help that person. And the way to help that person is we have to do it in a light way, with ease, with freshness, and with kindness, so that person can let go of that narrow-minded attitude. But if we just argue against that person, we can't help them. So whenever we see someone and that person say things that, according to me, is not correct with it, that instead of arguing against them or criticize them, we have to find ways to help them to let go of that narrow-minded attitude. So that's the practice. The arguing back and forth is not helpful. And to talk about the energy to bring home so you can use it for a long time, it depends. Whether I come home, if I plant that energy in my garden at home. It should not be like we drive a car and after a while we run out fuel and we go to a gas station and refuel. And that turned the Plum Village into a gas station. The people who live so far away from South America and they come here to refuel their gas. That's too far. So you have to do it in a way that when we come home to our local areas, with all our deep listening and loving speech, and we practice with the local Sangha, we bring Plum Village home. We plant Plum Village in our local Sangha, so that day and night we have Plum Village, day and night, so we don't have to go to a gas station to refuel. So that's better. That's building the Sangha. And to build a Sangha, we need to have loving speech and deep listening. For example, in Germany, we have that center, Suitung, Loving Spring. It's near Berlin. What is it? It's love. It's not just a house or just a garden, because everywhere has a house and a garden. But the meditation center, practice center, can only be practice center if there are sanghas, people in the sangha that practice. Um, in the Plum Village traditions, then then it's a sangha. But if in a sangha and people don't listen to each other and they're jealous of each other and they cannot harmonize their views, then that practice center is not is a has no use. It's not a loving spring source. It's a spring source of envy and competition, of discrimination. So if you have a practice center, it has no benefits. That center has to come from within your heart. It's not that you have money and you're able to buy a center. So each person has to reflect on this. See, am I truly contributing to the Sangha with my openness, with my deep listening, with my harmony? If I'm not able to contribute that, then don't say that, oh, we have a meditation center. We have a center or not, that's of no benefit. So this question is very good. It raised the issue of, am I practicing in the way that once in a while I go to the gas station and refill? Or do I plant plum village in my garden so that I can have the tree and the fruits that I can enjoy for a long time? So this is a very good issue that we can do in Dhamma discussions. Focus on this issue of Sangha building, because Sangha building is a great work that we can use all of life to contribute. If a Sangha is happy, then it become a place of refuge for so many people. At Plum Village, the monastics and the lay people here, their daily work is to build the Sangha. If they don't have love, care, and accepting of each other, then that's the work. If whether Plum Village is so beautiful, it's made of all these buildings and sceneries or gardens, the Plum Village is made from the daily practice of living together in harmony with understanding, using mindfulness while we speak, while we work, using deep listening and loving speech. So I hope that you can do the same in your Sangha. Thank you.